All right, so as mentioned, today we're going to have a presentation from Kati Dahm of Loft Orbital on building your personal brand. And so we're really excited to do that. That is going to be led, well, this presentation is organized by our Elevating Women Working Group. And so I'm patiently going to give Nagar a couple of more minutes to show up so that she can kick it off. But while we're working on that, and let's let people in. While we're working on that, I will tell you a little bit more about today, including the fact that today is Space Day New York. So if you are in the New York State area, but particularly if you're actually in New York State, today is Space Day New York, which is a new initiative being launched by Empire Space. And we are very grateful to be partnering with them because we are, of course, based in New York. New York Space, Empire Space, I apologize. Empire Space is creating a groundswell of all the space activities happening in the state of New York. And this is the first time that we're collaborating. They have promoted this event, and we're happy to see some of them here. And of course, they have some other events, so you can take note of the URL that you see here, which says spacedayNewYork.com. And I'd love for everybody to participate because hopefully starting next year, this will actually be a live event and we'll have an opportunity to do things face to face. So with that, I should also make note that next meeting is on June 22nd. It will be a closed meeting in keeping with our cadence of having alternating open and closed meetings. So closed meetings mean that you, in order to attend, you need to be someone who identifies as female and participates in the space and satellite industry. This meeting will have an opportunity to hear working group reports and news about the upcoming SSPI-WISE elections. And with that, I am going to turn the table over to, where's Nagar? I just saw her come in. I'm going to turn the table over to Nagar so that she can get us started.
Thank you, Tamara. Good morning. I just wanted to introduce our speaker today, Kati Dahm, who's a marketing professional who heads marketing at Loft Orbital currently. She's been working in the industry for over a decade, and she began her career in corporate comms at brands such as Cisco and NIO, and she's had a lot of other roles and initiatives that helped, including, IPOs, branding exercises, product launches, and, M&A type of activities. She has a lot of expertise in this field, and we are super excited to have her come and talk today about branding. She's very good at storytelling and understands what power it can unleash in terms of meeting your business objectives. And I'm hoping that she shares some of this secret sauce with all of us today. I also wanted to recognize her for being part of our SSPI-WISE Elevating Women Committee. And just a quick plug for the nominations and elections going on right now. If anyone's interested in volunteering for any of our committees, please do so. And we're really excited to have you, Kati. So I'll hand it over to you right now.
Thanks, Nagar. Let me make sure that my deck works on here. I have been working in Google Meet for a while now, and so I've lost the muscle memory for with Zoom. So let me check if I can share my screen. Let me see. Okay. Let's see. I think this is it. Okay. Hold on. All right. I might need to grant access.
Are you having difficulty getting? You should be able to share. I can make you a co-host if it's not working.
Yeah, 1 second. Let's see. It's not letting me share my PowerPoint.
That's strange. Okay, let's make you a co-host and see if that solves the problem. Maybe. Okay, so you are now a co-host, and you should have a little green button down there that says share screen.
Mhm.
Okay, and then when you share screen, you should see a bunch of windows, and if not, there might be a plus sign in the share screen thing that says show all windows.
Mhm.
Are you seeing your PowerPoint there?
No, I'm not.
Is your PowerPoint already open?
It is open on my screen.
All right, do you want to send it to me and then I'll share it for you?
Yeah, let me send it to you. All right. Let me just jump on here.
Okay.
Hey, Tamara,
While we're working through the technical difficulties of which, welcome to technology. I'm going to, let me just join the screen here. Okay, so while we're going through all of that, and I'm getting Katie's slides so that we can go through her presentation, I really do want to echo what Nagar mentioned, which is that working groups are open for volunteers. We would love to have volunteers join us and participate in all of the working groups. There's opportunities to take on leadership roles. And so please drop me a line if you have any interest in doing so. And Katie, I have your presentation. I'm downloading it right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it.
Well, that is exactly why I'm here, is to help with stuff like this. So I'm happy to do it. All right, so open. Sesame, open. Okay, yes. Slideshow the beginning. Okay, and so I'm going to make an adjustment here and share my screen after I remove myself from the spotlight. Katie, are there any videos in this? Do I need any sound?
No video, no sound. Nope.
So here we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tamara. I appreciate it. So I think without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. Building a personal brand is a topic I am really passionate about. I think it is so reflective of today. I think it focuses on who you are and what you want to be known for, and really helps you create authentic connections with people. I think the core themes that stick out too when you think about any brand is creating something that is consistent and reliable. And I think the way that you show up as well is something that is not only going to last a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years, but really should last throughout your career and quite honestly, your lifetime. So in this presentation, I'm going to review kind of the core fundamentals of a brand in general. So we'll take the kind of big picture view of what a brand is and what it really means. Spoiler alert, it is more than just the visual identity, which is the logo, which is the color scheme. We're going to dig a little bit deeper into that, and then also provide you with actionable ways that you can take with you as you think about building that authentic personal brand. From there as well, I think discussion is really important. So there is time at the end to ask questions. So I would ask that you save your time for them. I'll take the questions from the chat box and address them. there. And lastly, I'd love to connect with you. I think I joined SSPI-WISE to connect with other professionals in the space industry. And so my goal really in this conversation is to meet more people here. And so I would really love to connect. Feel free to reach out after, and I'll share my contact information, and would love to see yours as well. So that said, building a personal brand, we can advance to the next slide. Little bit about me. I have spent my career actually in most of the tech industry. So I've been in the tech industry for over a decade. I started my career at Cisco, and this was actually right when companies were building their social media presence. And so it feels a little counterintuitive for a big enterprise company that is selling networks and switches to say, hey, we're going to build our social media presence to interact with consumers. But in many ways, building that brand out was something that I learned a lot from. And so I worked both on the brand side of the house and then on the social, or kind of the demand side of the house. So building our marketing machine and social selling through our social channels. On the brand side of the house, I worked with a lot of our executives, including our CEO and chairman, to build out their social profiles. And the formula I used is something that is actually pretty similar to what we will go over today. So if you look at the current CEO and prior CEOs and other C-suite executives at Cisco, take a look at their social profiles. I would welcome any of your feedback, but that is something that I spent a fair amount of my career earlier on working on. And it was a lot of fun. I got to learn a lot and see a lot of the different areas of the business, and then really apply that to where I wanted to go in my career as well. After that, I joined NIO, which is a Chinese electric vehicle company. I worked in their advanced technologies arm in Silicon Valley. And through that, I saw basically the principles of brand applied at hyper growth speed. We grew from 100 people to almost 10,000 people globally in the span of about 2.5 years. And so understanding how a brand could both, how you really introduced a brand either to a new country or to a new person and manage the perception of that was a really key learning for me in that place. I also worked closely with our executives, a few of whom did not speak English. And so it was really eye-opening for me to understand how and why people interact with brands and what resonates in different countries. Most recently, I led communications and marketing at Astra, which was actually my first foray into the space industry. I would argue that there were many similarities. I think in the technology industry, things move really quickly. You are very customer centric, and you really have to be able to explain the nuances of your product. And I found that at Astra as well. It was a privilege to help build that brand. And I knew that in my next role, I wanted to kind of go back and start at the beginning, which is why Loft Orbital became such an exciting place for me to join. I started talking to them, I think, almost 9-10 months ago. And I think it was I had some really inspiring conversations. And full disclosure, we are in the middle of a brand refresh right now. So maybe at a later date, we'll be able to share, or I'll be able to share more of that with you. Okay, so next slide, please, Tamara. So as we think about what a brand is and what a brand isn't, I found this piece of research from the Axios Harris poll. The Harris poll has been around since 1999, and it basically assesses the brand presence of these well-known US-based brands. This is a reputation ranking, so it identifies what basically the reputation of the brand is. And two of the themes that I think that you should be looking for throughout this presentation are the themes of trust, consistency, and reliability. And so as you can see, all of these brands really have hit it home in terms of scoring high, in terms of trust, in terms of consistency and reliability. One of the interesting ones that stood out to me on here was actually Costco. I had to take a second and kind of think and research more about why Costco was on this list. But it's actually because of the current economic environment. Inflation is very pervasive. It's on top of everyone's minds. And so a brand that is marketing itself as very cost conscious, something that is a good bang for your buck, is something that is especially influential in this kind of day or place, time, and day. Chick-fil-A is on there, regardless of political leanings. It is something that is known for great customer service and a consistent experience. So that again kind of feeds into that overall theme of trust and consistency and reliability. Apple, again, is something that we all know, we all recognize. They take a lot of pride and time to ensure that their brand and their visual identity is very consistent, as well as their user experiences across the board. So this is kind of that look of what Americans see as the top brands and most reliable brands in 2023. On the next slide, which we can advance to now, we can take a look at the ones that have the most negative perception. And I think there probably shouldn't be too much of a surprise of some of these companies on here. I think we might have heard about Balenciaga and kind of a questionable brand campaign they did around child trafficking. TikTok, with its roots in China, is something that is kind of seen as a brand that is not exactly trustworthy. And I think the overall sentiments around social media as well are right now are fairly negative. And that's why we see Meta, why we see Twitter. Twitter also is not seen as very consistent right now, which is a very interesting paradox for us marketing professionals as well, because Twitter is where so much of our audience spends their time. But at the same time, the overall experience on there is not consistent and it's not very trustworthy. I don't think a few of these other brands are much of a surprise either. I think, for example, Spirit Airlines is known as the low budget airline with delays, with pieces that I'm sure you've all seen the meme of pieces falling off the plane. But these are all kind of really good examples to think about when you go into what a brand is and what a brand isn't. It is less about the logo and it is more about the overall experience and the fact that you are building trust and reliability with your core audiences. Oh, the last one actually I wanted to add on here is Family Dollar. I had to look into this one, but they have been plagued with a bunch of issues, including cluttered, understaffed, hazardous stores. They've had a mouse problem, I think, as well. And so while the economic environment is something that is very cost conscious right now, the experience and consistency and experience at Family Dollar is something that leaves a lot to be desired, which is why it's on there. So let's talk about how we apply this to a personal brand. And if we want to advance to the next slide, that would be awesome. So in this session, we'll talk a little bit more about the pillars of what your personal brand strategy can be. These have been pulled from both building personal profiles, but also building company brand profiles. And so let's dig in. If you want to advance the next slide. So the first kind of pillar of your personal brand is really defining what you want to stand for. This is the most important piece. I think it's critical for success, both in today's job market, but also to make yourself stand out. This is where you probably want to spend the most amount of your time. If you go down the checklist of what you want to use your personal brand for, I think whether it is advancing your career, whether it is getting that promotion, whether it's evangelizing your ideas or your platform at your company, I think it's important to think about what your objectives are and really hone in on one or two of them, because that will shape the rest of your strategy. What are your values, passions, and unique strengths? I think that's important to think about. For example, when I started thinking about building my own personal brand, I knew that my experience in social media was something that would help set me apart, especially in a world of people who are more traditional corporate communications professionals. Understanding the speed of how things work on social media and also the way content is consumed is something I think about a lot, and that I hopefully tends to come through in the way I approach problem solving in my marketing role. Especially in the space industry, again, where so many conversations happen on Twitter. What do you want to be known for? So it's, again, with perception, it's really important to think about what is the current perception and where are you going and what is the desired perception. It's a lot harder to measure this. It's really hard to quantify. You can quantify it in terms of followers, people who are interested in learning what you have to say, but it's such a but I think in measuring in whole is very holistic. And so you should be very clear with yourself about what kind of that success looks like. Next up is really important as well. Consider your audience. Who are you talking to? Because that will also change how you craft your message, what channels you use, and especially what channels you use, we'll go into that. And kind of how you disseminate your brand and where you show up. Extra credit here is, if you are really focused on spending time on this, is develop your mission statement, develop your elevator pitch or other key messaging. What do you want to be known for? One thing that I've noticed throughout my career in terms of taking stock on my resume is that I love learning. I love those really deep or those really sticky technology problems, and figuring out how to communicate those in a way that is simple to a broad audience and seeing them get it. And I also love building things. So I've built communications, I've built marketing at a series of companies now. I've built other programs. And I think those are the two kind of core themes that I think about in my personal mission statement and my personal description. Let's advance the slide, please. So knowing your audience, this is really the fundamental piece of building your own brand. I think with any communications or any marketing plan, you want to know who you're talking to. You cannot talk to everybody. I wish it was that easy, but it is very challenging to get one message to land with a bunch of different audiences. So is your audience internal? Is it external? Really honing in on who you are trying to reach and how you want to reach them are going to be really important. Next slide, please. So establishing your channel. So the next step is really how you reach and how you meet your audience. When you're building your own brand, you probably say, oh, I want to build my Twitter following. But if your audience isn't on Twitter, it's not going to be a good use of your time. I also was laughing when I found this graphic because I noticed Google Plus was on here. That is not around. I wish they would switch it out with TikTok. And if I was better at Photoshop, I would have done that. But I think you have to choose a few strategic channels in terms of where your audience spends their time to really engage with them there. The other thing that is not on this graphic is real life. I think we have a ton of awesome networking events and other activities where you can build connections with your audience. And so you're not limited to building your brand digitally. I think you can go to events like Space Symposium, like SmallSat. Maybe you're going to tech conferences like Web Summit or other events. Oh, good point, Tamara. I'm missing Discord too. But really finding out where your audience is spending their time and meeting them there is really going to be the best way to connect and build those authentic connections. Next slide, please. And so as you have identified your channels, think about signal versus noise. I think we have all seen the people that like to spend a lot of time on Twitter opining on whatever is happening. To me, this feels a little bit like noise. I think what you want to do is identify that signal. What is the really meaningful value that you are adding to the conversation that no one else may be able to add? And figuring out what that mix is. Maybe 90% of what you are sharing or what you are engaging with is related to your brand, and 10% might just be something you're interested in. Maybe you have a rule that you don't repost from other people, you only create original content. Maybe the converse is true and you're resharing other people's content because you actually believe that advancing those ideas is a good part of your brand. You have to decide for yourself. I personally take a mix of checking back against my personal brand definitions with what I share. And I kind of look into saying, does this advance kind of something I believe in, something I agree with, some of my values, something I'm excited about. And I think we also can err on the side of overthinking. I think as long as you can do that quick gut check, you should be fine with sharing that content. But I think what you have to do is really do that check in terms of what is signal and something important to say, or what is just taking over the airwaves or talking just to talk. I think that's why it's important to establish that strong professional online presence. I think focusing on building those genuine relationships are really truly how you can continue to define your personal brand, both with yourself and with other people. And I think you also have to think about what you do affects other people. And so these are all things that I think you should be thinking about anyways in your career, but I think thinking about them in the context of your brand is also a helpful guide. It shouldn't be transactional. I think you should be focused on building those long and authentic, long-term relationships that are going to be more authentic and more valuable. And look for opportunities to add value to other people's lives. I think when you think about your value prop, if you have worked on developing that, think about the unique value that you are bringing. So let's advance to the next slide. Lastly, with any kind of campaign or anything you're trying out, refine and maintain. While personal brands are a lot harder to measure, it's still important to track your efforts and understand how you are tracking towards success. You could track things like a number of followers that you might have, feedback you might have gotten from somebody who is trusted on your, or somebody who is a trusted mentor or colleague or connection that you have, and try to use that data, and it's definitely more empirical data, to refine your brand and how you show up, the channels you use, and the success that you are seeing. But you can't measure what you can't, or you can't improve what you can't measure. So keep that in mind and try to upfront, when you are defining your brand, think about what that success looks like for you and how you track over to it. And so this is intended to be a short kind of presentation to get you thinking about how you are building that brand. I'm happy to open it up to questions now and to discussion. I'm also happy to do a follow-up in maybe a few months as well, to talk and provide a few other case studies. But what I wanted to do is really get you thinking about what a personal brand is, and thinking past just the logo or the visual identity. So that said, happy to answer any questions, would love to connect with you further. And thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Katie. I actually had a question in terms of frequency of posting on these social media sites. What would you say would be appropriate for, aerospace professionals? Is it daily? Is it multiple times a day? Is it weekly?
So I think that goes into the refine and maintain bucket. What is the objective? And so if you are advancing your personal brand and you want to become, or for example, if you are looking to be known as kind of a voice in your industry, I would say once a week is probably going to be the most meaningful. With algorithms the way they are, looking into how each channel might specifically boost information. So for example, if we used LinkedIn, if you are natively uploading images to LinkedIn, so if you are uploading a photo or a video, that kind of post is going to get more traction and have more people see it. However, you also kind of have the concept of diminishing returns. So if you keep doing that, the algorithm is going to notice and probably not show your post to as many people. So the goal would be to think about, again, what that personal value prop is, and make sure that that is infused to any statement. And so it's so broad. It really depends on the topic. It depends on what you are trying to do, and what you want to be known for. I hope that was a helpful answer. I think you decide how active you want to be, but at the same time, you also want to be strategic, because you don't want to, because posting every day is probably not going to be the most effective means.
No,
we've got
okay.
a couple of
Thank
questions in the chat. So if I can go ahead and ask some of these questions, I think that will be helpful. So I'm going to start with this first question from Wendy Newman. She says, other than numbers of followers, what are good measures to track as we explore our personal brand?
Great question. Let's start with ones that are in real life, like at a conference. Did you have meaningful coffee conversations with people? I think you want to think about the bigger picture in terms of, am I meeting people that are going to help me advance my career, advance my knowledge in a specific area, or advance my broader network? So coffee conversations could be one thing. Speaking opportunities, if you've been asked to speak on a panel, whether that is internal or external, maybe that's another measure that you could be tracking. From a digital standpoint, if you have a website, maybe it's the number of followers I think number of followers is generally a good metric. You can look at your posts and look at the number of impressions, number of engagements, but those to me feel a bit more like vanity metrics of oh, this did well, but there are so many factors that go into that. I do think that consistently looking at people who are following you to understand, because you're actually adding value into their day-to-day, is generally a really good foundational metric to follow.
Okay. Divya, Kala, would you like to come on camera or shall I ask your question for you? There she
Hi.
is.
Hey there. That was a really great and insightful sum up because it's such a complex topic, Katie. So thank you. I wanted to ask what have been your biggest learning curves in building your personal brand, and how did they inform your decision making now?
I think, quite honestly, listening to feedback and deciding whether or not to take it. I think especially, and this kind of goes into Jennifer's next question as well, as women, we get all kinds of feedback. And I think we get, and especially for my role in marketing, we get a lot of unsolicited feedback in terms of why can't we do this? Or why aren't we doing this? And really staying true to kind of what you want to stand for and what's valuable to you is one of the best things you can do. I think it sounds a little cheesy, but I do really encourage people to be authentic and really trust your gut in terms of building your personal brand.
Super, thank you.
Okay, I have another question. Well, you saw already that Jennifer asked the question.
Yeah,
And
so I can read it and then provide my thoughts. I don't know that I have the right answer to this though. One of the balancing acts we have to do navigate as technical women as being perceived as nice as well as confident. How should we think about implicit biases that affect our strategy to be perceived in the right way? Oh man, I wish I had the right answer to this. What I would encourage again is really find and build your, the other thing I think about a lot is like coalition building or community building. Who are the people that you know and trust that are going to go to bat for you and that implicitly understand your personal brand, and how can they help you advance it? Whether that's in your company or whether that is within other groups, I personally have felt that has been really helpful to me. I have the way I kind of think about this is I have what I call like my personal board of directors. And so these are people that I have worked for in my career, that I've met through my career, and that have expertise in different areas. I have people that are more technical. I have people that are CMOs, but they're a group of people that I can go to when I'm having a specific problem and message test with. And so having that personal board of directors to bounce problems off of, or to like include in my own personal coalition, whether they're at my company or outside of my company, has been really helpful for me.
I'm going to invite Catherine Gerald on camera.
Thanks, Tamara. So I recently launched my own executive search firm, A&D specific. Half the execs I place are women. And so I've been really conscious on building the company brand, with kind of fresh disruptor logos. But then as I'm hiring employees, how do I encourage them to build out their own personal brands, but also have it complementary? And right now it feels like my brand is the company brand. So I guess what's the differentiators and how do you encourage employees to do the same?
I love that you're encouraging employees to build their personal brands. I think one, that also helps your company brand scale in a way that would be really hard otherwise as a smaller company. It might be helpful to go through a similar exercise to this with them and figure out with them, like, what do they want to be known for? Some of the recruiters I've worked with, for example, in the past, have been more than just kind of a transactional recruiter. I think positioning themselves as somebody who is like your career advisor or somebody that is going to bat for you, is going to give you really good feedback, has been incredibly valuable to me when I've been thinking about exploring or looking for next roles. And so maybe doing a session on kind of your mission and values and how that is infused into each of your employees could work. I'm happy to chat with you more about this as well, because I think it also really depends on the person. Some people have an appetite to get themselves out there and to build their personal brands, and other people don't. And so maybe it's kind of a mixture of the two. Is one, kind of focusing on those company, the mission, values, things that are important to your company, but also figuring out how people can put their own personal spin on those. Channel wise, I think obviously LinkedIn is a really big place to play, but also thinking about other places you guys show up and build connections, or think about thought leadership even, could be a really interesting way to build that out. And also congratulations on starting your own business. That's awesome.
All right, any other questions?
I think Divya was asking about paid promotion while building a personal brand, stigma. It depends on your objectives. I think there's a lot of value in getting out there and meeting people in person when you're first building a personal brand. I think using channels online to advance those opinions are great, but I do still think, like, as human beings, things tend to resonate more when you are able to express them and meet with people in person. So when it comes to paid promotion, if there is something, I would maybe we can, is there an example, Divya, that you have in terms of using that? I would generally err away from paid promotion, but I would also kind of think about what is a different kind of paid if you have budget allocated for that? Like, is it paying to attend a conference, right? And then you're able to meet with people and set up meetings there. Is it, I don't know that you want to do like a promoted post on Instagram or on Twitter. I don't know that you're going to see as much value come from that. So while I wouldn't say there's a stigma, I think you just have to be very intentional about the things that you choose to amplify with paid.
So I have a question. What occurs to me is that this idea of building a personal brand has a lot to do with self-promotion. And of course, I'm very grateful to the Elevating Women Working Group for hosting this, because that's part of it, right? But actually, there are a bunch of us who are like, no, I don't want to, no, shy, or whatever the reason might be, that putting yourself forward in any kind of way is actually very challenging. So what are the ways that we can cultivate a personal brand that flows kind of naturally from personalities that are not necessarily very outgoing?
Oh man, that's a good question. And maybe that is something you want to lean into. Maybe you have better connections with people via email, right? Or maybe you're more comfortable that way. And so then I think putting a lot of effort into your writing skills, for example, could be one way to further building those connections. I would argue, though, that you do need to be there and be making those connections in person, first of all. But I understand. I've talked to a lot of people that are like, I don't want to be on social media. Like, I don't think that's a good use of my time, and nor do I want to get sucked into that world. I think that's okay. I think most professionals should at least have a LinkedIn profile, but other than that, I think you can spend your time using other channels to reach people. And again, it really depends on your objectives. If you are looking to be the industry thought leader in something, you probably do need to kind of open yourself up to spending time on social. But if you're not, I don't know that you have to force yourself into that box.
I have another question from Wendy, and I have a question from Chita. So I'd like to prioritize Chita. Chita, do you want to come on camera, or shall I ask your question? Okay, I don't see her, so I'm going to ask. So her question is, what advice would you give to those in their early career? How do you balance developing yourself and not looking like a grifter? And then Andalisa puts a tag on that. She says also, or transitioning careers.
I think it goes back to that first exercise of defining what you want your brand to be and what success looks like for you. Like, if you are hoping to think about your career 5 years in advance, perhaps, and think about where you want to be there, and then track back from what that is. And start to kind of shape your messaging, shape your values around what those things are. I think when you're earlier in career, you really have to, I think it's helpful to focus on showing that you can do really great work. If you can focus on execution and doing great things, your work will speak for itself, and that will, I think, help advance your narrative more than anything else. And so one thing I think about a lot is excellent execution. Are you doing what you said you would to the best of your ability? And so I think earlier in your career, thinking about that, and then building your brand on top of being able to execute well is great. And then that will open up other opportunities for you.
I'm sorry, Katie, can I just amplify what you just said? Well, just one more point on that. I think as women, we do a lot of great work, but then we shy away from sharing the work that we've done. And we're overly modest. So I just wanted to add that on top of what you were saying. So please, on your LinkedIn profile, on your resume, in your conversations, even day to day, reiterating to your team and your manager and the stakeholders what you've accomplished. Guys are touting what they're doing left and right, and we just don't. And that's why we don't get recognized for it, because people don't even know what we're doing.
Yeah, that's such an important point, Nagar. I think, and the cool thing is LinkedIn is building out kind of a system to support that. You can input projects, you can input all sorts of like descriptions of work that you've done, awards that you've gotten onto your LinkedIn profile. And I think that it's a really good place to store those kinds of examples of work and accomplishments. And I know that actually is a nice transition into Wendy's question about LinkedIn. And how important that platform is. I would probably say of all the social media platforms to be on, that one would be it. I think they've done the best job, in my opinion, of creating a space that is good for career growth and good for learning. It's also well moderated, so you don't have issues with as many fake portfolios or fake profiles. And people are generally going there to advance and expand their horizons. I think you obviously sometimes still get like the self-congratulatory posts. I feel like I see a lot of them from salespeople. And that might not have been fair, but some people more than others are active on there. And I think, again, if you are posting authentically, that will generally come through. Some of the best, other people are very open. And I think I love the trend of people that are kind of sharing more about themselves on LinkedIn. I think that's great because I think it allows us to be multidimensional at work. But I would say that is probably one of the more important platforms to be on. I think connections I have made connections I've made through LinkedIn and maintained on LinkedIn have been where my last 2 jobs have come from.
So I will make a quick announcement, and I'm watching for other questions. We're at 11:45, so the session ends at 12. Deborah Factor is in the room. She is SSPI-WISE chairwoman, and I'd like to give her a moment to greet us. I'd like to take a moment to thank you, Katie. You have been so generous with your time and your well-reasoned understanding of branding and as it relates to people. And so thank you. Thank you very much for that. I want to give us an opportunity, all of us, to think about personal branding, especially if we're under the age of 35 or know somebody under the age of 35. SSPI is currently having nominations for the 20 under 35. Currently open now and through July 17th. It is a great opportunity to build out your network by reaching out for people to give you endorsements. And it's another thing to say about yourself that, hey, I'm in this industry and I'm a potential future leader of it. So I want to encourage people to take advantage of that opportunity to communicate your value to this industry. Nagar had one last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Deborah. She says, do you think, I think that we've kind of had this question, but she says, do you think, answer to the, okay, I'm doing too many things. Do you think posting personal posts on LinkedIn is appropriate? That's over to you, Katie. And to answer your question, Nagar, yes, I will put this in the chats, but yes, it's open to everybody globally. Go ahead, Katie.
I do actually. It depends on the post. I think with all of these things, you have to kind of run it through your personal gut check. but I actually think that goes back to the point around making yourself multidimensional. I think that there's people are, or work is becoming something where you should be able to and be comfortable with sharing kind of what's going on, because I think it is something that helps you build community and build relationships. And I think what you have to just think about is, if this is a personal post, are you comfortable with people seeing it and asking you about it? And is it something that advances kind of your personal brand or something that you strongly believe in? It depends on the person, it depends on the post, and it depends on the action as well that you want people to take after that.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Katie. You did an excellent job. From the Elevating Women Committee, I also wanted to thank you for doing this for us and participating. And I hope everybody else on this call found the information as useful as I did. I'm personally only very active on LinkedIn and despise Facebook. So I probably need to step up my social media campaigns, but yeah, this was very helpful. Thank you. And I'll hand it back to you, Tamara. And Katie, was there any last points before we conclude?
I think fundamentally a brand is something that authentically represents who you are. And so I think as long as you are focused on remaining true to like your value and who you are, that brand is going to resonate with the right people and the correct audiences. And I think stay focused on that. And it's a long game. You have to focus on building for the long term versus for quick wins, which is something that I think we all know very well in the aerospace industry.
Thank you so much. And I hope everybody will join me in giving a virtual or actual round of applause to Katie for such an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. And with that, I am going to bring Deborah Factor on screen. Welcome, Deborah.
Hi, Tamara and Nagar. Thanks for organizing. And Katie, great to see you. Thanks for spending your morning with us and for everybody joining. It's always so fun to get perspective from others in the industry who are true to your values and true to the SSPI-WISE objectives, and particularly with the focus of elevating women and our own brands, who we are, and I love the concept of being authentic. We should be our authentic selves every day, and we really are, and expressing that and having more vulnerability is very powerful. And I resonate with what you shared, and hope everybody takes it to heart and finds it useful. And there's a tip or two that you can apply immediately. So really just wanted to say thank you, and appreciate sharing. And yeah, I look forward to even more seeing all of your LinkedIn posts if you're using them, and sharing what happens on SSPI-WISE, part of building our community and networking with each other, the relationships there. So thank you, and looking forward to having more discussions just like this.
Okay, well, everyone, we are at 11:50. We have, but I join, how about I come on camera? Okay, we're at 11:50. We have all of 10 minutes left to be with each other. I can either just give us back that 10 minutes, we can go on our merry way, but I want to give us a chance to, if I can do so, I'd love to give us a chance to give a brief overview of each of the working groups. As mentioned at the very top of the meeting, we are heading into our third cycle of elections. I'm very excited about this. SSPI-WISE is growing in the way that Deborah asked us to grow, which is that we are becoming more sustainable as an organization. And part of that means that we are actually looking to cultivate leadership. And this is also part of building a personal brand, that you step forward and volunteer and learn how to be present in these spaces. So we have 6 working groups with SSPI-WISE. I don't know if they're all represented here today, but very briefly, Elevating Women. Nagar is currently the lead for Elevating Women, and that working group is about the effort to promote the presence of women, the visible presence of women in the industry through a variety of ways. And so we are very grateful again to them for bringing forth this session. We look forward to new opportunities. We're having conversations about whether or not there are some sorts of awards programs we ought to be having. There's all kinds of ways that we can think about elevating women. So if that is a thing that you're passionate about, I encourage you to get involved. I would love to tell you a little bit about our mentoring team. Wendy Newman is one of our leading chairs here. I don't know how many of the rest of the chairs are here for mentoring, but again, this is a phenomenal environment where women are paired up with other women in order to gain insights about how to promote and advance themselves within the industry. This has been phenomenal. I can't begin to tell you how amazing and wonderful it was for me to find out in London that people had heard about SSPI-WISE mentoring. And I heard this from a young man who said, "It is working. Congratulations." Okay, that was exciting to hear. Okay. We have a STEM outreach working group. As we all know, getting involved in this industry frequently requires starting at a much earlier age than college. And so we want to, but it also involves communicating to college students that, you know, the only way to get into the space industry is not just being an astronaut or working with NASA. There's a whole commercial space industry to participate in. We need to communicate that and build out those relationships with the academic communities. And STEM Outreach is our working group that is taking that task on to make sure that young women, young women, young girls and women are aware of opportunities in the industry and have access to opportunities in the industry. We have a social media working group, which helps promote everything. They are my favorite working group just because they're so consistent in making sure that we are present. Katie, my goodness, all the stuff that you talk about, they do. They do for SSPI-WISE. And so if
Thank you, Tamara.
It's very true. And that's Elizabeth Tweedy. She's one of our leads for the working group. We have a blog, SSPI-WISE blog, that Elizabeth Tweedy pens for us. So if engaging and making sure that SSPI-WISE has a presence and that women have a presence in social media is something that you're interested in, the social media working group is there. I'm networking. Networking. Again, this is something Katie talked about, our networking ability to show up in spaces. I am really not good at it. I love being friendly and outgoing, but I'm not a person who likes to be in networking environments. But our networking working group makes these opportunities available so we get some practice. So I'm very grateful for this. They typically have made opportunities for us to meet up at various industry conferences. And they have been really wonderful. It has been just phenomenal to see all the women gathering and getting together. They have made available opportunities for us to be able to recognize each other with scarves. Soon we will have pins so that whenever you're at a conference, if you're feeling a little shaky and like, I don't know anybody here, if you see a scarf or an SSPI-WISE pin, you'll know you've got a friend. And so networking, if you're interested in helping coordinate networking opportunities for women, there's that working group. And the last but not least is our newest working group, which is the Sustainment and Infrastructure Working Group, which is entirely about the workings of SSPI-WISE. What do we need to do in order to be successful as an organization? How do we build out a budget? What is our slate of elections going to look like? All of the stuff that means the brass tacks of the workings of SSPI-WISE is the Sustainment Working Group. And again, if you're really interested in that kind of organizational, operational engagement, please participate. Melissa Orlick and Jennifer Hoyle are leads. Yeah, I think they're both here, are leads for that working group. Okay, I have done that whole big thing in a very short amount of time. I hope that all made sense, but seriously, it's on our website. We have an SSPI-WISE website that you can go to at the SSPI page, sspi.org. I have a note from Patrick, who's here. Patrick is from Empire Space. Again, today is Space Day New York. It's a new initiative in which that we are honoring New York State and the space industry that is all over New York State. And I just want to share that the reason why today is chosen, Patrick gave us some really fun history that that somebody with the Apollo mission, I think, was born here. Okay, I don't remember the history, but anyway, let's see if I can find them. Nope, can't find them. Okay, anyway, New York State has a history of space that we don't always appreciate because we think of Florida and Texas when we think of space. New York State actually has a lot of space happening right now. And so I encourage anybody who's in the state to participate in Space Day New York. This event was popularized and promoted by Space Day New York, and we are looking forward to their virtual events there as well. And Patrick has put his chat in the email and the link. So with that, I'm all done. I made it, and we've got 3 minutes left. Okay, I'm coming off of camera, and I invite everybody to wave at each other and say hi. Patrick.
Tamara, can I
Yes,
just
hi.
make one last suggestion? Hey, maybe on these type of sessions, we have the small rooms where we open it up for people to chat directly to each other for 5 minutes going forward at the end of these kind of talks. I think it would allow for more networking and more easier conversation flows in smaller chat rooms. But just a suggestion for next time. Thanks.
Yeah, let's keep that thought in mind. We do that all the time in the closed meetings. So let's think about whether we want to do that in the open meetings as well. So that's a good suggestion. Thank you. Okay. With that, I want to thank everybody. I want to give another thank you to Katie and to the Elevating Women Working Group. And I want to wish everybody have a wonderful rest of Thursday. How's that?
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.